Hidden behind the palm tree, my island life story. Hello everybody, welcome. Here we are with Signposts for Living with Dr. Kirsten Hunter, and we have a very dear friend here, Nathan Smith. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So we got talking about your background, and I just got a bit excited about how intriguing it was, and said, "Please come along."
Yeah,
and you jumped. You said, "Yes, let's do that."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people don't really understand what Vanuatu is like, or just in general island time, I suppose, which is what the story is.
Absolutely. Can we start on what is island time? And then can we go back into your background?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is island time? I've been to Fiji, and I've been to Vanuatu and the Solomons and a few other places, and island time.
Yep. Well, I suppose a simple way to put island time is cruisiness, no sense of urgency, no understanding of general direction or just general habit.
General direction. What do you mean?
I guess perfect perception of life is you're driving your car, you follow the road rules, you have stop signs, traffic lights. When it's red, you don't go. When it's green, you go. When yellow, you try and speed or you slow down. Whereas Vanuatu, there's just none of that.
I thought you were I didn't understand you weren't talking about Vanuatu. Right. So you just follow your nose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I've often wondered how, I don't mean this in a negative way, I really don't, but how do you get stuff done? Or do you not care to?
Well, you get to work at 8 o'clock.
Mm.
You go home for a rest at 11.
Really?
You come back to work at 1:30.
Right.
And you go home at 5. And then hopefully you come back the next day.
Or you might be busy doing what?
Or you might be busy fishing.
Yeah.
Falling asleep on the beach. No tent because it never rains that often. Just a simple understanding of what everyone takes for granted here is just not what's in Vanuatu.
Yeah. Sounds like they're just very much in the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Vanuatu has over 80 public holidays a year.
Sorry, what?
Vanuatu has over 80 public holidays a year.
Did you say 80?
Yep.
80.
Yep.
Public holidays.
Absolutely. Yep. I think it was 86 last count, including one was for a cruise ship that left 10 years ago. Or it would have been 15 years ago. It was his last trip to Vanuatu. Yep.
It's poetic.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And if there's a cruise ship that's got its last trip there, everyone goes and waves and has an early mark.
Really? That is brilliant.
It's ironic. I mean, people just don't understand how chilled and how relaxed life is.
I was in Vanuatu for one day on one of those cruise ships. Yep. I'm not proud of it. And I turned up with these bags and bags and bags of school equipment to give to the local schools, right? There'd been a cyclone on. Good idea. Great idea. Do you think I could find someone who could meet me to take the gear to get to a school?
No, absolutely not, because
school's closed.
All cruise ships are there for a day.
Right.
Because they go to another 6 different locations. So you sleep during the night, you wake up at 7 o'clock, there you are in the port in this makeshift concrete slab that for some reason stands there. And then you get off the ship, everyone goes, "Okay, where are you going?" "I'm going into town." No dramas. Walk through the line of people wearing Mother Hubbards, get down there, get on a bus, you pay $10, which is way too expensive. Get on a bus that takes you into town, right? And then do whatever tourists do, which is buy cheap DVDs. That's about it.
There you go. Well, I was so desperate. I ended up giving the bag of books and stationery and colouring stuff and you name it to the taxi driver, who said, "I will make sure this gets to a school."
It absolutely did not get to a school.
No, it didn't.
No.
But you know what?
They would have gone around the corner, had a look and gone, "Oh, pencils. I don't have to buy anything for my kids for the rest of their life."
So I basically sponsored a family.
Absolutely. I know you probably sponsored a whole village.
Well, that's good. That was the goal.
It was. I mean, I think 6 years ago there was a cyclone that hit Vanuatu.
Yeah.
Right, and apparently it ravaged the island. Ravaged. Everyone had no water, no power.
I literally went there 7 years ago. So the time frame's kind of in there.
That must have been it then, because then the Australian Navy decided to fly a plane over to have a look at the island, see how much damage there was.
Right.
There was none, because
what?
they would like funding from the Australian government.
Sorry, what?
They wanted funding from the Australian government.
So you're saying there was no damage, so they said there was?
There might have been a couple of trees pushed over or something, but no. There wasn't much damage. There was a cyclone in the 1980s called Uma, and that's probably the worst one they ever had. Okay?
Right.
My grandparents were there then. All the light poles were bent 90 degrees and touching the ground.
Not good.
No. I then remember we had Cyclone Ivy. I think that was in 2000s. And that was probably the next worst one. We were still driving around though. It was perfectly fine. But it's their understanding of severe disasters is far from what our understanding would be.
Well, driving around probably not that mindful of electricity.
Or they had
dangers.
A tsunami warning in 2007. I think the tsunami was 32 centimetres or something.
Are you saying they actually exaggerated?
No. There was an earthquake and there was a tsunami warning that was in place.
Right.
But they recorded it at 32 centimetres when they hit the shore. So, bigger waves on the Gold Coast.
I'm hearing sense of humour.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the country is the stuff that we have here, even simply as an escalator, is something that is far beyond what they could expect over there. They had an escalator put in at a shopping centre about 5 years ago, and everyone's weekend trip was to go up and down the escalator, and that's because they are biased to what the rest of the world is.
Yeah. So it's one of the exotic things that happens out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they'd go and ride the escalator.
Yep, up and down. It's
quite sweet.
Yeah, and I mean, I get a lot of joy when people laugh and things like that, because it's actually quite interesting, and to understand that even I find it ironic and funny.
Whereas we would find going and sleeping on a beach at night time for the night a life-changing experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas it might be a weekend thing for kids.
Yeah, well, our school day would start at 7:45 and finish at 1:45. That was school, because we started significantly earlier.
Why? Did you just wake up with sunrise, so let's go?
No, I didn't wake up at sunrise. No way. No, I was still struggling at that time. I guess it was just more so because that was just the way that they ran things. People would rather get in early and finish early and have more stuff to do in the afternoon.
I like that.
My Fridays, I would, more times than none, would go, hey, Mum, Poppy, which, are my grandparents. I'll see you on Sunday. I would go home, pack a bag, and we would just hop on a boat, look for an island, and just stay on the island.
What would you eat? We'd
catch a fish on the way, things like that. Or, we'd take lots of Maggi noodles because they were really cheap at the time. And, we would start a fire. We would have a little gazebo, sometimes not, sleep in the back of the boat. And I would decide on Saturday whether I wanted to go have breakfast with the grandparents, because they had breakfast every single Saturday at this cafe called Jill's, right? More times than none, I wouldn't, because I didn't know where we were. But then, we'd just come home before 3 o'clock on a Sunday, get ready for school, and head off.
Would you ever find it hard to find your way back? Do you ever get lost?
The islands are only so big. Eventually, you're going to find your way somewhere. I lived on Port Vila, or what they call Efato, which is the real name. And it takes you 3.5 hours to drive around the whole island.
Yep.
That's if you would like to stop a few times as well. So we knew it pretty well, and you would only really get lost if you were right out in sea and you couldn't see where you're going. But we were never like that.
And were there any animals that were of concern on these islands?
Yeah, I'm sure there were. I think the worst one was probably the black and white sea snake. I forgot the name of it. Apparently it was poisonous.
Well, John and I met in Niue, and there were lots of black and white sea snakes. John, do you know what they were called? No? They were sea snakes. And they were poisonous, but they stayed away from you.
I was actually watching a documentary about this the other night. So apparently they're the most poisonous, or the second most poisonous sea snake you can get.
So we're in a cave swimming with like tens of these things. And John's like, it's fine. Yep. No worries.
There's a photo that we have on the fridge at home, which still surprises my family to this day.
Yeah.
My Australian family to this day.
Yeah.
It's a black and white sea snake, and I'm just holding it. I think I'm 2 years old. It's wrapped around my arm and things like that.
Far out.
But they're the... If you could call a snake a Bob Marley snake, that's probably what they are.
So they don't want to bite you?
No, not at all. They're venomous, but I suppose they're antisocial. You know, they just don't want to be...
I could kill you. I really don't want to.
Just not in the mood to, though. You know, that's... Yeah.
You tested that theory, didn't you?
Yeah. Apparently a few times.
Far out. And what about during the week? What was life like during the week?
So I get up early, probably about 7:15. Get ready for work. For school.
Was there school uniforms?
Yes. Yep.
Really? See, I'm surprised to hear that, and I don't know why I'm surprised.
It was very similar to a state school, I suppose you'd call it here. You know, your polo and your shirt, your shorts and sneakers and things like that.
Right.
So I went to the international school then. It was based off an Australian curriculum, and there was kids from all around the world, so Indonesia, China, French, New Zealand, Australian, England. So
were you kind of the who's who kids? You know what I mean? Not the local crowd?
No, we were. We were, absolutely, yeah. We I suppose you'd say we used to just run the town because we could do whatever we wanted to.
Why?
I guess freedom isn't really a good terminology to say. It was more than freedom. The police there are very much on island time, right?
So give me an example of that.
Perfect example is, so I went and got my licence there, right? I think I was 13.
13.
Yep. I started driving when I was 4. I used to sit on my grandfather's lap and steer the steering wheel. 5, then I sat in the passenger seat and controlled the gearbox. Right? And there used to be this block of land next door, and where the businesses that they used to own, we had a lot of space as well at the paddocks and things like that. Then 6, I started driving, and it was one of those little Suzuki little buses that if you got hit by a Prado now, you'd probably explode. Okay, so drove around in those a fair bit. By 7, I was driving.
Seriously?
Not by myself. I had my grandparents there, of course.
But you were behind the wheel, somehow seeing over the top, sitting on top of something?
No. Oh, I was a Sasquatch of a kid.
A Sasquatch.
I was tall.
That's a word.
Yep.
And you could reach the pedals and look over the top.
Yep, absolutely. My back wasn't against the back seat, but I was sort of supporting myself with the steering wheel. Yep. So 13, I went and got my license. I was born in 1992.
Yeah.
Okay. We figured out if we crossed out the 2 and the 8 and changed it to sort of look like a scribble of an 8, it worked. So got my license.
Pretending to be what age?
18.
So you were 13 pretending to be 18. I
probably wouldn't pull it off these days if I was going downtown, but it worked there for some reason. So
I would have thought everyone knew everyone. They would have known your age.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, they do, but I think everyone just turns a blind eye.
Yeah, it's like it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, so we did our tests and had a look. He goes, "Oh, what's this?" And it's a bridge. What's this? It's the road. Okay, next thing you know, he shows a bridge. It's that the London lifting bridge.
You're joking?
No. We said, well, can you explain to us where that would be in Vanuatu? So that was pushed aside. Okay, and then I had to take the policeman in the police car down to the road to buy a pack of cigarettes, and then drive him back, and done. Apparently, I drove really good.
Did you have to pay for the cigarettes?
No.
There you go.
No.
That just says so much.
Probably would have got my plane license if I did that.
Yeah, you could have, you know.
Yeah.
Imagine what whiskey would get you.
Oh, well, there was actually a couple of times, you know, when we were young and we were out partying and things like that, and being young boys or people that own the town, you get into mischief with tourists all the time.
What do you mean, mischief with tourists?
So you always get the young group of men that come over, or, you know, tourists from Australia and things like that. And
what did they think of Australians?
Well, at the time, we're Vanuatu people.
So what did that mean?
We're locals. You don't mess with us.
All right, so don't mess with us.
Yeah,
okay.
Our shoes were, you know, our feet thought they were way too big for our shoes, honestly.
Right, a bit full of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did you think Australians were kind people or naive people or?
Probably more naive, I guess, or probably just more so cocky.
Cocky.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because
relatively.
Our perception of Australians, or just even tourists just at the time, they come over there, they used to love getting on those scooters, and those little electric scooters driving around town. They used to always crash because they were pissed as a nit. And then they'd go out hitting the pubs, trying to, girls and boys trying to pick up anything they could, and then all they wanted to do was fight.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't everyone, because at the time the people that wanted to fight were the young kids that were going out, that were 18 and could go out. Whereas the older people like us, or like 28, or even parents in general, were at home with their kids, or at the hotels with their kids. They went out pissing it up. So
older Australians, younger.
The younger Australians weren't a very good perception of tourist Australians in general.
I get it. Yep.
This one night there was a group of about 4 or 5 guys, and they were out walking and were absolutely, I suppose you'd say, absolutely maggot beyond degree.
Drunk.
And we weren't far off it either, to be honest, but we were just sitting in the back of the ute having a few beers, and they came over and were sort of mouthing off, and things escalated and things like that, and push and shove, and the police came up, lights blazing, absolutely, and there was 4 of them in the car. They come out, and in the language, they go, what's going on here? And I had my mate Eve, mate at the time, said, what's going on here? Well, these guys have come out to the club, and they're trying to start an argument and things like that. They said, okay, well, do you know them? No, we don't. So every single one of those 4 people ended up being taken into the watch shop, into the cop shop, because they didn't know who we were or who they were, and because we were locals, they took them in.
Because they didn't know who?
Because they didn't know who they were, and they were just out starting mischief, even though we were probably the ones that instigated it in the first place.
What do you mean they didn't know who they were? They were too drunk?
Yeah, so the police took these tourists to the prison, to the rooms there,
watch house or something.
the watch house.
Yeah.
It wasn't much of a watch house, but it was to a certain degree, because their view was they were out trying to start mischief.
So they were the baddies, not you guys.
They were. But the police were also very, very high on substances that you probably wouldn't suggest police being on, and had a full carton of beer in the back. So they were out enjoying themselves as well.
There you go. There's 3 parties going on.
There's a lot of parties going on.
Oh my gosh. And is alcohol very cheap there, or expensive?
It's relatively cheap. We worked out if we could buy a carton every single day, we could take it back to the brewery and get more money for it, and only have to fork out $10 after that to buy another carton.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go back in time.
Okay.
So, who is mum? Who is dad? How did it all come to be?
Okay. Before me?
Yes.
Okay. I would assume that, so dad is, what? He's Javanese, French Javanese, right? Probably more Javanese, which is Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Vietnamese French, I suppose,
right. Yep, easy as that. And then mum she's born in PNG. She's one of 2, so they were twins.
So everyone, that's Papua New Guinea?
Papua New Guinea. She was actually born in Lae.
Right.
Which is there. They then met when...
In another country?
In another country, sorry. They were my grandparents then, at the time, they lived in PNG when my mum was born.
Right.
They then relocated to Vanuatu.
Right.
And that's when they started their business.
Mm-hmm. What business was it?
So they used to look after all the air freight and shipping agencies.
Well, that's quite significant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then mum lived there for quite a bit. My auntie came over to Australia for schooling, and she furthered her career and was quite successful here. Mm-hmm. She never went back until a few years later when I was running amok and I got grounded. So that was great. So I was there then, right? That's another story though. And then mum was there, and she met up with this local bloke, right? And he was the fella in Grease Lightning.
What? John Travolta?
Yeah, I guess he was a John Travolta of Vanuatu.
Oh, okay.
Right? Slick back hair, used to wear the white polo tennis shorts and the tight, extra small shirt, and
So
I would dare say he was probably a very good looking bloke.
He had it going on.
He had it going on.
Okay.
He was rocking the 80s.
Got it.
Right?
Got it. Yeah.
Very good at tennis. Very good at running. He had the tan.
Yeah.
Beautiful man.
So you come from good stock?
Apparently so. Apparently. The only difference is I've got all my teeth now. He's got none.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's all Coke though. Coke, like not drugs, Coca-Cola. Too much sugar.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, it's really sad.
Oh, it's very sad. Very sad.
Kids out there, don't drink Coca-Cola.
Don't drink Coca-Cola.
Right. Gee.
Yeah.
Okay, but he had his teeth at that point.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yep. Like I said, he was a beautiful man back then.
He was a beautiful man.
Yep.
Established.
Yep. And so they obviously, rekindled, ready to mingle. And then I think Mum was 21.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I popped out.
Hello.
That's right. Yep. And then that's where I started.
And did they stay together at that point?
No.
Right.
I think that's a bit. Yeah. That my understanding about that is that they were together for maybe a year before everything. I mean, it was always up and down. It was always a rocky road. She was ready for kids, I suppose. He wasn't. I still remember I was said that I was born to keep him, right? So rather than I want, it was more of a...
Maybe if we get pregnant, we'll be locked in.
We'll be locked in, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So then he then, after that, pretty much just died off. Not really died off, he just sort of started doing his own thing. I believe when I was 4 or 5, he then went to New Caledonia. After he'd met a woman in Vanuatu.
New Caledonia, where he was from?
No. Well, he was always... Well, his family... It's sort of a split family. The majority of the family was in Vanuatu and some of the family was in New Caledonia.
Okay.
So he met a woman in Vanuatu probably when he was about 5 or 6. They were there for a few years. They then relocated to New Caledonia where he had 3 kids, 1 boy and 2 daughters, I believe.
Right.
I don't know their names.
Wow.
Yep, I have got one of them on Facebook. I can't find him for the life of me because I don't know his name.
Gosh.
Okay, he did add me quite some time ago.
That's really hard to do the search, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. And okay, right. So Dad kind of went off into the horizon.
Yeah, look, Dad went off and probably had the life he wanted, I guess. He was happy. He had 3 kids. He was in New Caledonia. I think he was working for some mining company over there. And didn't really want much to do with me at all.
And did you have anything to do with him from that point on?
No, not really. It was on and off. We did see each other when I was younger, things like that. He was there on and off when I was growing up as well. But he had his own life.
And how have you caught up with him subsequently to find out he has no teeth?
Oh, he's got really beautiful photos on Facebook.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's missing the four front top.
Yeah.
Yeah, one's there.
Okay. Rightio. So that's how you
couldn't put a straw through. You could put a bloody car through it. So, yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, so there's Mum. Now, have we got Mum solo with you? Or have we got Mum with other partner? Mum with your grandparents? What's the picture?
So Mum was living by herself. Grandparents were still there, sort of helping out. She had a job. She was working at one of the resorts at the time.
Which is very time consuming, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So where were you when she was at work?
So I actually, in fact, went to the kindy that was just down the road.
Right.
Okay, so there was a few, it was, I suppose, the expatriate kindy, you could call it. I went there a year earlier than I should have because we were obviously all busy. And a few of us did. It was just the way it was. Busy parents, busy lives.
Yep.
But I spent significantly a lot of time with my grandparents.
Yep.
I think my mum, she was young at the time. She had me young. She probably didn't really. This is my view. Didn't really have the life of enjoying herself when she should have. So she was out a lot. She still loved me. She looked after me and things like that, but she was out a lot.
Right.
Yeah, nearly every night.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So give us kind of a summary of the next few years. What happened? Play that through a bit.
Yep. So I would have been about 4 or 5, and my mother met the manager that used to manage the resort she was working at.
Yep.
We then moved into they used to live in, generally a lot of managers live at the hotels they work at.
Yep.
Okay, so we moved into the hotel with him. He had 2 daughters. They then became my stepsisters. When I was 6, we then relocated to Auckland.
Tasmania, New Zealand.
New Zealand, yep.
That's random.
Yeah,
What?
His tenure come up.
So he said, let's go to New Zealand.
Yeah, so they have a tenure of where they are, and then eventually the company, whichever they work for, then goes, look, we have a position open up here, would you like to relocate? And yeah, they did.
So you went to New Zealand?
So I went to New Zealand, went to Auckland. Very cold. Very cold.
Very cold.
Yep.
So you go from the tropics to somewhere very cold.
Very cold, yep.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Well,
away from grandparents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're 6 or 7 years old, and daylight savings over there is on a whole different aspect, going to bed at 7:30 when it's daylight until 10:30 isn't a very fun thing.
Right.
So that was all I remember.
Right.
Cold, windy. Used to love people trying to walk up the street in the wind because we were quite high up. But yeah, we lived in Auckland for 3 years.
Gee. So we got 7 through to 10-ish?
6 through to 9.
6 through 9. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then after that, we picked up the pieces and we went to, I believe it was Terrigal, New South Wales.
New South Wales, Australia.
Just along the coast, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Coastal New South Wales, right?
Yeah, I think it's down the lower end.
Right.
Not until, I can't really remember, I was quite young. So we lived in a hotel there for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the hotel was really quite nice. You know, I should really get on Google and have a look at it, see if I can find it, but we lived there. After that, we then relocated. It was sort of an interim thing, went to Coogee, which is still in New South Wales. Mm-hmm. And we lived there for 6 months. Okay? Mm-hmm. Went to 2 different schools.
Pattern forming.
Yep. That was still with so not the oldest stepsister. She then went to boarding school or did whatever she wanted to do. The second youngest one was with me still, so we were quite close, on and off. After that, we then went to Perth.
So you jumped over to the other side of Australia.
Yep.
Over to Perth in Western Australia.
Over to Perth in Western Australia. So no, Broome first.
Broome up north.
Yep.
Western Australia.
Yep. In that period of those three places we lived in, we went to 5 different schools.
Why?
Well, three were obviously schools there, and I think a couple didn't work out for either of us.
Right.
Me and my stepsister sort of got into the mentality that we didn't want to make friends because we'd just pick up and move. Every time we made friends, we moved.
And isn't that the thing, isn't it? You know, it's like, well, I'm not going to put down roots here because I'm just going to feel a sense of loss.
Yep.
So stuff that. So you've got moving countries, moving locations, moving schools.
We grew to be quite tough, you know, and to sort of go, well, what's the point? We grew very independent. I suppose very shut off. We didn't want to make friends because there was no point making friends because the common perception was we just kept moving.
It's not very child-centred, those decisions.
No, not really.
No.
Look, we got to travel a lot, see a lot of things, but I think at those ages, she would have been about 14 or 15, and I was sort of 9 or 10. It was sort of within that gap is where friendship really blossoms, and you need that support. We never really had that support.
Yep. So you went from Broome and then Perth.
Yep, went to Broome and then we went to Perth.
Wow.
I remember Perth because that was when September 11 happened. We were there.
There you go. Everyone knows where they were during Yeah.
Yep. I was asleep. I got woken up.
Yep.
Right. I went outside, watched the TV. We ran in late that day to school and majority of kids did because they were watching it. We were in Perth. And that was 2011.
I was with Americans that day.
Were you?
Very random. Yeah.
Yeah, righto.
It was quite devastating. They were just trying to call people. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's we didn't get much schoolwork because obviously there was a lot going on.
Yep.
But then after Perth, we were there for a year. That was actually the first time we never lived in a hotel. We actually lived across the river. So my stepdad used to work in the river, in the city, and we used to live across the river.
Right.
Then after that, we then went to the Philippines. We lived in Manila.
Wow. That's another big jump.
Yeah, so Manila was
Why?
probably the biggest eye-opening one for us.
Why is that?
So we lived in the hotel. The hotel used to be an old hospital, right? Filipino people are very much, well, in my view, spiritual, I guess you can say. Everything in the hotel used to creak, so I used to always think there was ghosts.
Oh.
Right? I used to have a bathroom in my room, so I thought if I open the door and the light shines through, ghosts can't go through light. So I had a barrier. It was awesome. And it was always, the hotel was haunted. So, at that age, that's probably the worst thing you could ever imagine. Okay?
How?
Well, because ghosts.
Yeah.
Creepy. And now I actually just don't care about spiritual things. I just learned to get over it.
So when you say spiritual, you mean like ghostly stuff?
Yeah.
Right. So for Philippines, is very ghostly.
Yeah, like enough to probably scare Casper. Like that stuff is just creepy. So, and there's always spiritual stories where the devils are walking down the street and, he walked through a cage. Well, okay, it's not really cool to be listening to when you're 11 or 12.
And good night.
Yeah. And my room was next door to the stairs, so everyone was always walking up and down, so I was always hearing things all night.
Creak.
Yep. I went to an American school. Now, that was different. I still remember the American system. So we have 4 terms here, okay, for school terms.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
America have a Christmas holiday, school, mid-year holiday, or summer break as they call it, and back to school. Summer break was 10 weeks, right, and Christmas was 2 or 3 weeks. The school guards used to have guns.
What? Why?
Because people were being kidnapped and things like that over there. High-profile people, I suppose, and because we lived in a hotel, we probably, people probably think we had money.
I have actually heard that kidnapping is a thing in the Philippines.
Yeah, it is. It's shocking. And look, if you're kidnapped, you may as well just sign your death penalty off, because the people rescuing people are shocking.
Really?
Yeah, they're not good at the job.
Gee, so you were kind of being protected.
Yeah. So we also had guards at our hotel, right?
Oh, gosh.
And then we used to have a driver. They used to take us to school. To put it into, I guess, understanding is our school was 15 minutes away if you were driving in Australia. Mm-hmm. It used to take us an hour and a half to get to school because of traffic.
What?
Yeah.
Hectic.
Yep. And I still do remember that on a 7-day week, there's a certain number in your number plate on the car where your car gets a day off.
I don't understand.
I think it's for fuel, like emissions, things like that. But we used to just get another car.
John's nodding. I don't understand. So you 1 day a week you couldn't drive your car?
Yeah. So that's the idea for pollution, because pollution is really bad over there. Right, the rivers are filthy. Children with age is really high. Age in general is high. Poverty is high. Everywhere you look, there's just poverty. There's dead dogs. Germs are shocking. Disease is rampant through the whole place. So the whole idea of there was a number between 1 and 7. Okay, so on that number it would relate. So 1 would relate to Monday, I suppose you could say. If you had number 1 on your car, you weren't allowed to drive your car to work. That was to try and reduce
on a Monday.
That was to try and reduce the emissions into the pollution, into the sky and things like that.
So you had multiple.
Yeah, well, we had a few cars. No. We had being at a hotel. We had a couple of cars, so we'd obviously just changed to go to, But it's just one of those things that was just just mind blowing.
Exposure. So how long were you in the Philippines?
I was there for just over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Before me and my stepsister got relocated back to Australia.
Okay, so which adults were attending? Who did you come with?
Didn't go with any adults. So me and my stepsister. So my mum always had a habit, which thank God she hasn't now.
Yeah.
She had a habit of finding abusive men.
Right. So she was with the same man this whole time.
Yes.
Was he an okay person?
You could definitely tell there's favouritism towards his own daughter.
Right.
Right. I wasn't his son.
Right. Tough gig.
Yeah, but he was also very mentally abusive and physically abusive.
Really?
Yeah.
Towards your mother?
Yes.
Towards you?
No.
Okay. But you saw that?
Yes.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So, but that goes to the same with the boyfriend before him and my father. My father was much the same.
Physically abusive?
Physically abusive, yep.
And the boyfriend in between.
And the boyfriend between. I think there was a couple more that were the same.
Right.
It was just this ever recurring, revolving circle of just abusive men through the door.
It's a tragedy, that.
So that was probably one of the reasons why, I guess, mum and dad, or, him and her split up. Boyfriends in the past, didn't really work. Then you had this new one, and they were together for 6 or 7 years.
So hang on, are you talking about the one you went travelling with?
The one I went travelling all around the world with, yep. Right.
And so you came to Australia, they were still together?
They were still together, yep.
Right.
The reason I came to Australia was I walked into the hotel room and she was bloodied all over the floor.
Yeah.
So, out of it, had to put a pillow under her head, stay there all night and things like that.
And how old were you?
I believe I was 11.
Oh,
11 or 12.
Terrible.
Yeah. And then that call was made, would you like to go back to Vanuatu and live with the grandparents? I said, yep. And then my stepsister went to boarding school in Brisbane. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time I ever lived with my mother.
Oh, that's just such a tragic parting image.
Yep.
That's horrendous. So basically it was getting too horrendous for you to stay there.
Yep.
And off you went.
Yep.
That's terrible. You said Australia, but then you said Vanuatu. Where did you go?
So my stepsister, so we came to Australia first because we had to fly to Australia. Right. My stepsister went to boarding school here. I then continued on to Vanuatu.
So Mum wasn't going to leave him. Mum wasn't going to say, "Hey, this is just bullshit. I'm out."
I think the whole process was probably to try and figure out what was going on with them.
I think we know what was going on. She wasn't empowered enough to leave.
Yeah, I think so. I think she probably just loved him.
Yeah.
Which I guess there's no excuse for abuse to anyone in any aspect or need or view or whatever it is.
None whatsoever.
None. So they spent time together trying to figure out what was going on. As far as I know, he was then unfaithful, and that was what the deal breaker was.
That was the deal breaker.
Yep.
Right. Okay, well, hey, we'll take that.
Yep.
We'll take that. So she left. So you, sister's in Australia, you're in Vanuatu, Mum went where?
So Mum then came back to Australia.
Australia?
Yep. So
right.
Brisbane. Yep.
Right, and you were in Vanuatu with
I'm in Vanuatu with my grandparents.
Grandparents. And then what happened? How long were you there with them? What happened from there?
I was there for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Because the schooling system over there went to grade 10, and then you had to do distance education for 11 or 12. And for me, I never really... distance education probably wasn't suited for me. So the decision was made to go to boarding school.
In Australia?
Australia, yep.
So those years with your parents, was that grandparents, was that good, that period of time?
That was great. Absolutely,
okay,
yeah.
so a bit of stability.
Yep, stability.
Good people.
Yep, good friends.
Were they like your mum and dad?
My grandparents? No, absolutely not.
They were not?
They were not.
Do you know what I mean, though? Did they take that role of being like your parents, or they just were grandparents?
No, sorry. So they were nothing like my parents in the way that I was brought up.
No, I don't mean that at all.
But they were my mum and dad, yes. They became my mum and dad.
There you go.
Yep.
Yep.
So I refer to my grandmother as mum,
yep,
and my grandfather as Poppy.
Yep.
And that's just the way it always has been. To me, they are mum and dad.
There you go. So that's great. You had some stability. You had a lot of love. It was pretty good. I imagine you had a lot of fun in that time.
Yep.
That's good. Is that when you got up to the antics you told me about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I guess you can... Anything that you can do when you're 18 here, you can do over there when you're 12 or 13.
That's probably not good.
No. So what I learnt pretty quick is, we were clubbing when we were... my grandparents... I don't think they ever knew, but they were very wise people. So, they knew everything I got up to.
So you didn't realise they knew?
No, not at all. No. So there was a lot of, I guess, marijuana, right? But there was no cocaine, crystal meth, acid,
So no hard drugs.
No hard drugs. Pingers, dingers, mushroom. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. Right? There was none of that sort of stuff.
Just not available.
No.
So you could get up to mischief with marijuana and alcohol. That's it.
Absolutely. Yep. So, and the other famous drug over there was kava, which is a root. Okay.
Yes.
It's probably the strongest kava you can get in the whole South Pacific. It is brutal. Very brutal.
So my exposure to that has been kind of, as a tourist.
Yeah, no. Makes your tongue numb,
yeah,
right? Your eyes go red, so you look very baked.
Yeah.
And you should not be driving, but you can drive.
Yeah. Would you do a lot of kava much?
There's a rule. You do kava first. You don't drink and then do kava because it just comes back out. You do kava and then you drink. Okay. So yeah, I did. I wasn't very big on kava. I did kava every now and then.
Why?
Because it just tasted horrible.
Right. It's like mud, isn't it?
Yeah, I would just go in the backyard, dig some mud, mix it with water, and it'd be the same thing.
It is gross. It is gross. But you don't do it for the taste, hey?
No. Apparently you do it for the kick. Each to their own.
Too gross.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're getting up to all that. That sounds good. So how did you feel about coming to Australia to do, grade 11 and 12? Leaving your grandparents, leaving Vanuatu, leaving the lifestyle, going into a more structured school environment, I'm guessing.
Yep. Oh, look, I probably, I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't want to miss everything I had.
Yep.
I had stability. I had friends.
You had freedom.
I think it was more so the friendship. I had that stable household, which I didn't want to leave. I didn't have one for so long. So
absolutely.
To pick up, pack up and leave there. And none of my friends were going. I was the only one that was leaving. So that kind of sucked a little bit.
What was different for your grandparents compared to your friends with what the aspirations were?
In what
like,
sense?
why weren't your friends coming? Was it financial? They couldn't afford it, or it wasn't the goal? Or?
No, it was... I think it was just more so... they just weren't at that stage, I guess. That they were going to give distance education a go, or things like that.
Right, which was what most people do.
Which is what most people do.
Got it.
I was struggling at school quite heavily.
Well, your foundation years were so turbulent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I struggled. I absolutely sucked at school when I was over there. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I think because I had people say rough upbringing, but I had a different upbringing, I guess you could say. Not everyone has a perfect life. Unfortunately, the experiences I've had have just made me wiser to this day.
Absolutely. You've been exposed to an enormous array of life experience.
Yeah.
The good and the bad.
So then once I got over here, it was a struggle for about a week. It actually wasn't too bad. It was quite good because then I made some friends to this day that have been my best men at my wedding.
Really?
I still talk to them. Of the career paths, the networking, the contacts I have to this day by far supersede anything I had in Vanuatu.
Yep. So you made some really, really good contact, good relationships. Yep.
Absolutely, and in fact, one of my best men at my wedding that actually lives in Toowoomba. We were the first 4 to start.
The first what?
So the first 4. There was 4 boys in the 2 dorms to start. Okay, right. So we started the day before all the other boarders would come in. That was like a transition process. Mm-hmm. Me and him were in the same dorm, and the other 2 were in another dorm. We are the only 2 that made it through the rest of our schooling.
Right.
Yeah, so the rest moved on. So we're very close to this day.
That's beautiful. What did you think of the Australian culture? What did you think of the school system? It would have been a culture shock.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was order. There was processes. Everyone had a way of doing things. I didn't even get my pen license. So I had to, obviously I got a free pen, that was great. But pen license to me was like, I never achieved my pen license certificate. So I used a pencil school and the teacher got cranky at me, why are you using a pencil? I said, well, because I never got my pen license. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And that was things that we were just naive on seeing, stability and what life is over here.
Wow. Did you like it? What did you think of that level of routine and structure and stability?
Yeah, I loved it. Why
do you think you loved it? I would have thought you would just have hated it because it would have been such a contrast, and you weren't used to it.
Now I realised probably how much I was held back.
Right. By,
I guess, island life. It was just all we would do would drink, smoke, go to the beach, go surfing, go fishing. There was a stop sign in Vanuatu. No one knew how to use it. And it was just so many freedoms there that to come into, freedom's all great, and people go, oh, we want freedom, and everyone envies, oh, this is Australia's the land of the free and things like that. You don't understand what freedom is and how much you do not enjoy it until you come back to stability.
It's all about balance, isn't it?
It's all about balance, yep.
Because you can really progress and advance and increase your skill set if you can focus on something.
Yeah, and my view was, I was 16, when I came here, so I repeated grade 10. My mind was probably more of like a 19 or 18 or 20-year-old.
Well, you were so
everything.
worldly.
Yeah, I had done everything that you can't do until you're 18 here, mostly.
Yep. And you would have been very independent because you'd gone from world to world to world.
Yeah, absolutely. Those barriers were knocked down a little bit when we had made good friends in Vanuatu. It wasn't like we weren't seeing them ever again. I was still going back on school holidays. But the more I went back, the more I realised that there was no future there for me.
Can you elaborate?
So a good way to put it is last year, or let's say this year, there's 300 kids leave school, there's 300 jobs. Okay. Next year, there's 300 kids leave. Well, no, there's probably 305 because the more the population grows, the more the people grow. Okay, so there's 305 kids that leave school next year, but there's only 150 jobs. Then the following after that, there'll be 320 kids leave school, and there'll only be 50 jobs.
Yeah.
So the more down the track you get, there's generally more people out and about doing nothing. So, and that was evident by those groups of kids roaming around the town. You never had that when I left. It was only just us roaming the town. And then, there's more people coming over here for picking fruit because that was all that was left. Vanuatu's only so big, and I think it's probably reached the point or outgrown that point well and truly.
To the population outgrowing the geographical area.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. So you'd be able to see kind of like a shot in time, wouldn't you, when you go see its different points and seeing the progression or the deterioration, increasing concern.
So eventually everyone from Vanuatu comes over here. Okay? But it's a make or break. You'll either stay here or you'll go back home.
So it's very normal to come from Vanuatu to Australia.
Yeah. And I think in retrospect, I would say out of the 30 of us that come back over here, there would only be 8 of us here. The rest of them have gone back home.
Why?
Because they like to live under mum and dad.
Right.
Mum and dad have got resorts, got businesses. They then work for mum and dad. It's too hard for them to break out of that island style, island routine, island life.
Which is fair. It's the culture they grew up
absolutely. And I mean, it's what they love, But for us that have stayed here and followed careers and have followed our dreams, we would honestly have left them in the past.
There you go.
I've got friends that have gone back there and they were religiously going back there every 6 months. Loved it. And then they had one issue. One, in fact, had a few things stolen off him while he was at a pub there. And he vowed never to go back, and he hasn't been back in 2 years. He will not go back.
Yep.
I haven't been back in over 10 years.
Is that because...
Because I just don't want to.
Really?
I don't really have the need to.
Yeah.
My life is here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to... I don't have anything over there apart from my dad's family, which I have nothing to do with.
Yep.
So I have no... The only reason I would go back is if my family wanted to go back and visit it.
And so do you identify as what? What nationality?
Australian.
Yeah. When did that become?
I'm always proud to, say that I'm from Vanuatu.
Yeah.
Because it's different, and the way I lived was different to everyone else.
It shaped you.
Yeah.
In a good way.
But I'm always proud to be Australian. I'm Australian. I had an Australian passport. It's expired. I should get that sorted too.
We're not going anywhere with COVID right now.
It doesn't matter anyway. I was born in... The only thing I don't like is the fact I was born in New South Wales. Right?
Because you're a Queenslander.
Because I love Queensland. Yep.
You can adopt the state.
You can, yep. But yeah, I don't. You know, the terminology is Vanuatu people are called New Vanuatu. I don't class myself as that at all. I'm Australian, but I grew up in Vanuatu.
And what's happened with your mum?
So me and my mum had a bit of an up and down past, right? From then, we sort of went back and forward and disowned each other. Well, you know, I disowned her. I actually call her by her name, not mum. And then 3 years ago, we sort of probably started. I felt like 3 years ago was when we really started rekindling things. It'll never get back to that mother and son relationship ever. I asked her to focus all that energy into our kids, and she does. She does that very well.
Yeah.
She is a very soft-hearted, loving person. It's just unfortunate. It's not unfortunate. Well, yeah, it is of the past that we had, but doesn't mean I love her any less.
No, I'm sure you have a lot of love and compassion for her.
Absolutely.
Probably just have a bit of scar tissue as well.
Yeah. And unfortunately, scar tissue doesn't go away.
No.
It stays there. You just move on.
Self-protection in there, eh?
I actually hate, my biggest pet hate in not in life, but more so just in general, is people when they reminisce on the past. I absolutely hate it.
What do you mean by that?
So my mum, you know, she has a habit of talking about the past. She loves to talk about, not in a negative way, more so about her mistakes that she's made. Because I think she has a lot of regret.
Oh, okay.
Right? And it's more to say, so, well, you don't have to worry about it. Because I don't.
Yeah, let's move forward.
I don't have time to worry about that. So she has a lot of regret for everything that happened in the past, and
she might be a bit stuck.
Yeah, and I think she is stuck, and I think she's always going to have that regret. I guess mum guilt. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. I let out a social media post on that today.
Did you?
I did. Parental guilt this week. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, no, mum guilt is a real thing, and I've even told her, just project all of that positivity onto your, I guess, my half sister. So yeah.
Absolutely. And how has your childhood affected your parenting? So you are a dad, everybody.
Yep.
Got a gorgeous wife.
Yes. Stunning. Yes.
Stunning, gorgeous wife, and you've got gorgeous daughters.
Yes.
So how has this affected your view, your background? How's it affected your view of your family, and what does your family mean to you?
I guess my family to me is stability. It's my castle. Me and my wife have been together for just over 10 years. We've been married for just over 5.
Yeah.
All right. I went to schoolies. I came back to Brisbane. I started work the day after schoolies.
Everyone's schoolies is the partying we do after the end of year 12 here, senior year in Queensland. Yep,
the waste of money week we all spend on.
That you don't remember?
Yep, absolutely. Well, I remember it because I was 18, so I had to buy everyone grog.
Right.
Great. Okay. I can't disclose that, of course. But yeah, so started work straight after schoolies. I then came up here with a then friend that used to own a dealership in town before they went belly up. I met it was Wednesday. That was when they used to have a uni club over at one of the universities here, and went there, and I was wearing jeans, and I actually remember I was wearing tight jeans, because they were really tight then. That was the cool thing. Yep.
Were they black?
No, they were denim, but they did not leave much to the imagination.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With my black Converse shoes, I had a shirt, and I had a maroon cardigan jumper. I used to have this filthy sideburn rat tail. It was just
no.
So disgusting. I
know.
I used to love it. I used to be able to play with it. It was weird. Anyway, so I went
there. You remember what you were wearing?
Yeah. I only remember because my wife says to this day, "Oh, you're the guy," because I actually didn't talk to her that night.
Yeah.
She was dancing around. She was walking around with, I think it was a cruiser and a straw, and she was looking, stunning then, and she still looks stunning now, of course, right? But then I didn't talk to her then. And then I ended up going out to the clubs again on the Thursday to a nightclub in town. Forgot the name of it now, but went upstairs and she was there with her sister.
Can I guess?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you wearing this is my outfit?
I was wearing the exact same thing. Yep, wearing the exact same thing. And that was me. Oh, you were wearing the same thing as last night.
It's your pick up the girls outfit.
Well, it worked. It worked. So, and then from that night, it just went on from there.
Just as well those jeans were so tight.
Yep, who knows, right? But then 2 weeks later, I packed up all my stuff in Brisbane and moved up.
Really?
Yep, I lived with her for 6 months at her mum and dad's house. They gave me a place to stay because I hadn't settled up here yet.
Right.
And I've been here ever since, and with her ever since.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous, and you've got gorgeous girls. 2
gorgeous girls. Yep. Got my oldest one's a little redhead.
Awesome.
Right. Yep. She's actually beautifully stunning. She's got a beautiful olive tan, freckles, and red hair. So I'm going to have a lot of trouble when she grows up. Right. And my youngest one is brunette, beautiful green eyes. Right. Greeny blue eyes. Sorry. Greeny brown eyes. And she is massively tall for a 3-year-old. And I'm going to have more troubles with her when I grow up. So it's... Look,
better you than me.
Yeah. I've had to find my emotional side, which I struggle to sometimes, But, I've had to find my emotional side being a father.
The female household. As you know, I have a male household. It's me and my 5 boys and beautiful John.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah, so we've got opposites.
No, I've got very good at doing hair.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. Yep.
I've even tried the
vacuum trick. Yeah, the vacuum trick.
I saw that. Does it work?
No, I did no.
What
hair
happened?
Gets caught. And then you have to deal with that. That's great. So
it just sounds gross to me because you suck up like gross dust.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And my fashion sense is still really off point.
Yeah, well, that means you're a good dad.
Yeah.
You know.
My wife says my fashion sense is shocking with them.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's wrap up by talking about your grandparents. Where are they now?
So they live up here in Toowoomba.
How did that come to be?
They sold up everything, after the GFC happened, right? They got impacted quite heavily.
Yeah, of course.
Like a lot of people did.
Yep.
They then sold up everything and moved over to Brisbane, stayed there for about 3 or 4 years. They used to have a dog called Coco, beautiful Weimaraner. She lived till she was 15, 16 and then fell off the perch.
It's pretty good for a big dog.
It is. Her life expectancy was, I think, 12.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it must have been... She only used to live off ossobuco.
What?
Ossobuco, the meat with the bone in the middle. That's because that's so cheap in Vanuatu because they had their own beef. So that's all she lived on. So I think that's why she survived so long. She then, fell off the perch. They then moved up here because there wasn't really much down there for them. And they've been here ever since. So 3 or 4 years now. And
that was a okay transition for them?
Yeah, it was pretty hard. They had a lot of stuff to bring up. But once they're here, it's been a great transition.
Wow.
Yeah, they get to spend a lot of time with their great grandchildren, which they envy.
That is beautiful. And how often do you see them?
We see them nearly every single weekend. But I talk to my grandmother and grandfather. My grandmother every morning. I talk to my grandfather every second day.
That is beautiful.
Yep.
Seriously.
So it's more of a religious routine for me.
You've kind of brought your family to you, hey?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
there's that routine and stability.
Yep.
It's really interesting. You've had such a varied life. I kind of think of someone who's been on it sounds a bit silly, but someone who's been on a ship and they've gone from this port to that port to this port to that port, and you're like, no, stuff this, I'm going to create my castle.
Yep.
That's how I see you.
That's exactly right, yep. I just hopped on my own boat and went my own way, and I haven't looked back ever since.
Okay, well, can I ask you a last question?
Yep.
What have you come across with people's ignorance with the Vanuatu?
People's ignorance of Vanuatu. I think people seem to think that Vanuatu is, I suppose you could say, has no power. People live in a house, tin can sheds and all that sort of stuff.
It's really primitive.
Just very primitive when it is far from it.
Yeah, yeah. I when I went to Vanuatu, I thought that it would be a bit like the postcards. but it was actually very busy, very hectic.
Yeah.
Mind you, that was a busy, hectic area because they were kind of swooning around the tourists. But
well, I guess the best way to put it is Australia is the land of, I suppose we were talking about before, the land of unsafe stability, right? Whereas Vanuatu is the land of safe stability. Safe stability. So you can be there and not go anywhere, not knowing that there's nothing that'll impact you that we have in Australia. Whereas there's limitations and no opportunity over there. Whereas here there's lots of opportunity, but a lot of unsafe stability that you can risk yourself to.
Very, very different world.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very, very textured story.
Yes, absolutely.
And I find the contrast of the two cultures to be really interesting because I think it highlights the pros and cons of both.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Okay, I've got to go through this social media stuff.
Yep.
Are you an expert on that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so website, KirstenHunterAuthor.com if you want to catch me. Facebook page, Kirsten Hunter Author, and Instagram handle as well, Kirsten Hunter Author. Twitter, Kirsten Hunter AU, and we've got the YouTube channel, Psych in Your Car. And this is Signposts for Living with Dr. Kirsten Hunter. And if you're new, jump on, subscribe, and also people have been leaving comments and suggestions of what they want to talk about. So jump in and don't hold back. Thank you so much, Nathan. I appreciate it. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.